Everyone here pities you, my brother Lucas announced loudly, his glass raised high above his head. His smile was sharp enough to cut glass. I watched the room go completely silent. I counted 37 people. Our entire extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins. Even neighbors' mom invited because she wanted her 60th birthday to feel special. I saw them all turn to look at me. I noticed their expressions shift from celebration to concern. I felt their pity wash over me like a wave I never asked for. Lucas wanted to embarrass me. I knew that. I understood he wanted to make a statement in front of everyone. I realized he wanted to prove his version of me was the truth. But I knew something he didn't. I had evidence he thought I'd deleted. I possessed recordings he assumed were gone forever. I owned proof of every lie he'd spent 2 weeks spreading about me. I was done protecting him. I decided right then, standing in Mom's dining room with everyone staring at me, that tonight would be different. I watched Lucas take a slow sip of his wine. I noticed his satisfaction. I saw him scan the room to make sure everyone had heard him. I recognized this was his moment of triumph. He had no idea what was coming. I felt my phone buzz in my purse. I knew it was Mara, his ex-wife. I understood she just sent me everything I needed. Tonight, the truth would finally speak. I remember the dinner was supposed to be simple. I recall Mom had been planning her 60th birthday for months. I knew she wanted everyone together. She called me 3 times that week to make sure I was coming. I'd arrived straight from work. I wore a navy dress, simple and professional. I carried a gift bag with the cashmere scarf Mom had mentioned wanting. I walked through the door at exactly 6:30, right on time. Lucas arrived 20 minutes later. I heard him before I saw him. I noticed his loud voice carrying from the foyer. I watched him hug Mom dramatically, lift her off her feet. I saw everyone turn toward the commotion. He hugged everyone. I counted. Aunt Maria, Uncle Frank, Cousin Sophie, the neighbors, even people I barely knew. He greeted everyone except me. I stood near the kitchen doorway. I waited. I thought maybe he just hadn't seen me yet. But then I watched him look directly at me and I saw him turn away deliberately. I heard him whisper to Aunt Maria. I couldn't make out the words, but I saw her face change. I noticed her glance at me with something that looked like sympathy. I watched her nod slowly, seriously. My stomach tightened. I knew he'd been talking about me. I'd suspected it all week. I'd noticed the strange messages from relatives. Thinking of you. Stay strong. Things will get better. I hadn't understood what they meant. Now I was starting to figure it out. I found out the truth in the kitchen. I'd gone to refill my water glass when I heard Cousin Sophie behind me. "Elara," she whispered, touching my arm gently. "Is it true? Did your company really cut your hours? Lucas said you've been struggling." I froze. I felt the water glass slip slightly in my hand. I turned to look at her. I saw genuine concern in her eyes. "What did he say exactly?" I asked carefully. Sophie glanced toward the dining room where I could hear Lucas laughing loudly with Uncle Frank. She lowered her voice even more. "He said your consulting business is failing. That you asked him for money. That you're barely making rent." She paused. "He said we should all be gentle with you tonight because you're going through a really hard time." I felt my face flush. I knew it wasn't from embarrassment. I recognized it was anger, pure and hot. I'd never asked Lucas for money. Not once in my entire life. I'd actually just closed a $3.8 million consulting contract that week. My company, Quinn Strategy Group, was expanding. I'd hired 12 new employees in the past month alone. But Lucas had painted a completely different picture. I understood now why everyone had been looking at me strangely. I realized why the conversations kept stopping when I approached. He told them I was failing. He'd made me the family charity case. I walked back to the dining room. I watched Lucas tap his wine glass with his fork. The room quieted. I saw everyone turn their attention to him. "I just want to say something," he began. I noticed his voice had that practiced tone he used when he wanted to sound sincere. Family means everything. Especially when someone we love is going through a difficult time. I felt every eye in the room slide toward me. I saw Mom dab at her eyes with her napkin. I noticed Dad shift uncomfortably in his chair. "We all know Alara's had a rough year," Lucas continued. I watched him look directly at me with what he probably thought looked like compassion. "Her business hasn't been doing well. Money's been tight. But that's what family is for, right? to support each other when things get hard. I heard sympathetic murmurs around the table. I saw Aunt Maria reach over and squeeze my hand. I felt Uncle Frank pat my shoulder. Lucas raised his glass higher. So let's all remember to be kind. To be understanding. Because Alara needs us right now. The room erupted in agreement. I heard hear, and of course, and we're here for you, honey. I watched them all look at me with pity I hadn't earned and didn't need. Lucas sat down slowly. I saw the satisfaction on his face. I recognized he thought he'd won. I knew he'd just weaponized their sympathy against me. He had no idea what he'd started. I needed to understand why. I remembered 2 weeks earlier Lucas had called me. 3 times in one day. I'd finally answered on the 4th call. Alara, I need your help, he'd said. I heard the stress in his voice. Just a small loan. 20,000. I'll pay you back in 60 days. I'd asked him what happened. He'd explained his business was having cash flow problems. He needed to make payroll. He promised it was temporary. I'd looked at his business model. I'd reviewed the numbers he sent me. I'd seen the real problem wasn't cash. The problem was mismanagement, poor planning, and expensive overhead he couldn't sustain. Lucas, you don't need a loan, I told him carefully. You need to restructure. Cut costs. Maybe consolidate. I can help you create a plan. He'd exploded. I remembered his exact words. I don't need your business advice. I need money. $20,000. That's nothing to you. It's not about the amount, I'd explained. It's about throwing money at a problem that money won't fix. You're just jealous, he'd snapped. I'd heard the venom in his voice. You've always been jealous that I was the successful one. The one everyone admired. Now that you're struggling and I need help, you can't stand it. I'd tried to reason with him. I'd offered again to help him properly. But he'd hung up on me. The last thing he'd said was, "You'll regret this." I sat through dinner watching it happen. I counted 9 different people who approached me with sympathy. Uncle Frank asked if I needed help with my bills. Aunt Maria offered to connect me with someone who was hiring. Cousin Bradley suggested I move back home with Mom and Dad to save money. I watched Lucas throughout all of it. I saw him nod encouragingly when people offered me help. I noticed him whisper to others. I observed him building his narrative brick by brick. He'd positioned himself as the concerned brother. The successful one who'd offered to help but whom I'd apparently refused out of pride. He'd told them I was too stubborn to accept support. I understood his strategy perfectly. He'd created a story where he was generous and I was struggling but proud. Where he was the hero and I was the tragic figure who wouldn't accept help. Everyone believed him. I saw it in their faces. I felt it in their gentle touches and careful words. They all thought they knew my situation. Then my phone buzzed. I pulled it from my purse under the table. I saw a message from Mara, Lucas's ex-wife. We'd stayed in touch after their divorce 2 years ago. The message read, "He's doing it again. Controlling the narrative. Lying about people who won't do what he wants. Want the proof?" I typed back immediately, "Yes." Within seconds, files started downloading. Screenshots. Voice recordings. Text messages. Everything Mara had saved from the years she'd watched Lucas manipulate their entire social circle. I felt my heart race as I scrolled through them. I excused myself to the bathroom. I locked the door. I opened every file Mara had sent. The screenshots showed conversations between Lucas and various family members. Messages where he carefully planted seeds of doubt about me. Alara's company isn't doing well. She's too proud to ask for help. She asked me for money, but I'm worried about lending to a failing business. Every message was calculated. Every word designed to shape their perception. The voice recordings were worse. I heard Lucas on the phone with someone laughing. "She'll come begging eventually. She always does." I'd never begged him for anything. Ever. Another recording, "I'll tell everyone she's broke. They'll believe me. I'm the successful one. I always have been." A third, "I'm going to embarrass her at Mom's party. Watch. She'll look pathetic and I'll look like the caring brother." Perfect. I felt my hands shaking. Not from fear. From rage. From the sheer audacity of his lies. The final file was a text conversation between Lucas and someone I didn't recognize. Lucas had written, "My sister refused to loan me money. So I'm destroying her reputation. Fair trade." Mara's final message appeared. I saved everything because I knew he'd do this to someone else eventually. Use it. It's time someone stopped him. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I saw my reflection. I recognized determination replacing shock. I walked back to the dining room with my phone in my hand. I returned to find Lucas standing again. I watched him prepare to make another toast. I saw him wait for everyone's attention. Before he could speak, I stood up too. The room fell silent. I felt everyone's eyes shift between us. Actually, I said clearly, I'd like to say something first. Lucas smiled. I recognized that smile. It was the one he used when he thought he'd already won. Sure, sis. Go ahead. I pulled out my phone. I noticed his smile falter slightly when I walked toward the Bluetooth speaker Mom used for background music. I watched his confidence crack when I connected my phone to it. I think everyone should hear the truth, I said calmly. I pressed play on the first recording. Lucas's voice filled the entire dining room, loud and clear and unmistakably his. She'll come begging eventually. He always does. I just need to wait her out. I watched the room freeze. I saw mouths fall open. I noticed chairs scrape as people shifted. I felt the energy change completely. Lucas went pale. I saw all the color drain from his face. I watched him open his mouth but no words came out. That was recorded 8 days ago, I said. I kept my voice steady and calm. There's more. I pressed play on the second recording before anyone could speak. Lucas's voice filled the room again. I'll tell everyone she's broke. They'll believe me. I'm the golden child. I always have been. I watched the family's faces transform. I saw shock replace sympathy. I noticed understanding dawn in their expressions. I felt the room's energy shift from pity for me to horror at Lucas. I played the third recording. Lucas's laugh echoed through the dining room. I'm going to embarrass her at Mom's birthday dinner. Watch. She'll look pathetic and I'll look like the hero. It's perfect. Mom gasped. I saw her hand cover her mouth. I noticed tears forming in her eyes, but these were different tears. These were tears of betrayal. Dad stood up so fast his chair tipped backward. I heard it clatter against the hardwood floor. I saw his face turn red with anger I'd rarely witnessed. Aunt Maria spoke first, her voice shaking. Lucas, you planned this. You deliberately humiliated your sister. I played the fourth recording before he could answer. His voice again. She refused to give me money, so I'm destroying her reputation. Fair trade. Lucas finally found his voice. I watched him shake his head violently. This is taken out of context. Alara's manipulating you. These recordings are edited. I held up my phone. I showed the screen to the people nearest me. Every file has a timestamp. Every recording has metadata. Nothing is edited. This is exactly what he said, exactly when he said it. I passed my phone to Uncle Frank. I watched him examine the files. I saw his expression harden. He passed the phone to Aunt Maria. He did the same. The phone made its way around the table while Lucas stood frozen. Lucas lunged toward my phone. I watched Dad grab his arm hard. I heard the firmness in Dad's voice when he said, "Sit down, Lucas. Now." I recognized that tone. I'd heard it maybe 3 times in my entire life. It was the voice Dad used when he was truly angry, when there was no room for argument. Lucas tried to pull away. Dad, you don't understand. She's lying about me. The recordings are your voice, Dad said coldly. I watched him tighten his grip on Lucas's arm. Sit down. Lucas collapsed into his chair. I saw his hands trembling. I noticed sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool air conditioning. Aunt Maria stood up slowly. I watched her walk around the table to stand next to me. She looked at Lucas with disgust I'd never seen on her gentle face. You humiliated your own sister for attention? Her voice was quiet but everyone heard it. You made us all believe she was struggling so you could look generous? Lucas started to speak but Uncle Frank cut him off. Why, Lucas? What did Alara ever do to you? I decided it was time to explain. I cleared my throat. I felt the room's attention shift back to me. 2 weeks ago, Lucas asked me for a $20,000 loan, I said. I kept my voice calm and factual. His business is failing. He needed money for payroll. I looked at his numbers and told him the truth. He didn't need a loan. He needed to restructure his entire business model. I paused. I looked directly at Lucas. I offered to help him properly, to create a sustainable plan. But he wanted quick money instead of real solutions. When I said no to the loan, he promised I'd regret it. I watched understanding spread across the room. I saw relatives connect the dots. I noticed Sophie whisper to her husband. I heard Uncle Frank mutter something under his breath. So you made up lies about her? Mom's voice was barely above a whisper. I saw her staring at Lucas like she didn't recognize him. You told us she was struggling when she refused to enable your poor decisions? Lucas tried a different approach. I watched his expression shift to desperation. Mom, my business is falling apart. I needed help. Elara has so much money and she just... Stop, I said firmly. I pulled out my phone again. Since we're sharing truths tonight, let me clarify something else. I opened my email. I showed the screen to Mom first, then let it make its way around the table. This is my company's quarterly report. Quinn Strategy Group. Revenue, contracts, employees. I watched their eyes widen as they read. I heard gasps. I saw Sophie's hand fly to her mouth. My company just closed a $3.8 million contract, I continued. I kept my voice steady. We're expanding into 3 new markets. I hired 12 new employees this month. My business isn't failing. It's thriving. Uncle Frank looked up from my phone. This is the Quinn Strategy Group? The firm that won the Sterling Logistics expansion contract. I nodded. Yes. The room erupted. I heard multiple people speaking at once. I watched Lucas's face cycle through emotions. Disbelief. Then finally something that looked like recognition. You took my contract, he whispered. I looked at Lucas directly. I saw him staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Horror mixed with realization, mixed with something darker. You were bidding on Sterling Logistics? Uncle Frank asked Lucas. I watched Lucas nod slowly. I spent 3 years developing that relationship. 3 years. And she just swooped in and took it. I didn't take anything, I said calmly. I submitted a better proposal. With better terms, better timeline, and better pricing. I earned that contract honestly. I paused. I let that sink in. Then I continued. Is that what this is really about, Lucas? You lost a contract to me, so you decided to destroy my reputation as revenge. The silence was deafening. I watched him try to formulate an answer. I saw him open his mouth. Close it. Open it again. Nothing came out. Dad spoke, his voice heavy with disappointment I'd never heard before. Lucas, is that true? You lied about your sister because you lost a business deal? She stole my client. Lucas finally exploded. I saw his facade completely crumble. I worked on that deal for 3 years. Sterling Logistics was mine. She knew I was bidding and she submitted a proposal anyway. That's how business works, Uncle Frank said quietly. I heard the disbelief in his voice. You don't own clients. You earn them. And apparently Elara earned this one. I watched Lucas realize he'd just admitted everything. I saw the moment he understood there was no way out. No spin he could put on this. No lie that would save him now. Lucas stood abruptly. I watched his chair scrape backward. He looked around the room at all the faces staring at him with disappointment, anger, and betrayal. You're all taking her side? His voice cracked. I'm your son, your brother, your nephew, and you're believing recordings that could be faked. The metadata doesn't lie, Uncle Frank said. He held up my phone. I work in IT security, Lucas. I know how to check this. These recordings are authentic, unedited, time-stamped. These are your words. I watched Lucas's last defense crumble. He looked at Mom. I saw desperation in his face. Mom, please. You know I wouldn't. Get out, Mom said quietly. I heard her voice break. I can't look at you right now. Mom. Get out. Dad's voice was harder. I watched him stand. You humiliated your sister. You lied to your entire family. You manipulated us all to cover your own failures. Leave. Now. I watched Lucas look around the room one more time. I saw him searching for a single sympathetic face. He found none. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. I watched him walk toward the door. He paused when he passed me. I heard him whisper, "This isn't over." I looked at him calmly. Yes, Lucas. It is. I watched him leave. I heard the front door slam. I felt the tension in the room shift from anger to something else. Something that felt like relief mixed with sadness. Mom started crying. Real tears this time. Dad moved to comfort her. Aunt Maria was the first to approach me. I watched her walk around the table. I felt her pull me into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I heard the emotion in her voice. "I should have asked you directly. I should have questioned what he was saying." "It's okay," I said. "I meant it. He's convincing. He's had years of practice." Uncle Frank came next. I saw the guilt in his expression. "Alara, I offered to help you find a job." "God, I'm so embarrassed." "You were trying to be kind," I said gently. "That's not something to be embarrassed about." One by one, family members approached me. I heard apologies. I felt hugs. I saw genuine remorse in their faces. Sophie hugged me last. "I knew something felt off," she said quietly. "The way he talked about you didn't match the person I know. I should have trusted my instincts." "He's manipulative," I said. "That's his skill. Making people doubt their instincts." Mom finally approached me. I saw her eyes were red from crying. I felt her hands shake when she took mine. "I'm your mother," she said. Her voice broke. "I should have known. I should have protected you from this." I squeezed her hands. "You didn't know, Mom. None of you did. That was his whole strategy." Dad joined us. I felt his strong arms wrap around both Mom and me. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before. "You handled this with grace. You could have exploded. You could have screamed. But you just let the truth speak." I felt tears finally form in my own eyes. 2 months later, I sat in my office overlooking the city. I watched the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. I heard my phone buzz with a notification. It was an article someone had forwarded me. "Local business owner declares bankruptcy." I saw Lucas's company name in the headline. I read that his remaining clients had left after word spread about what happened at Mom's birthday dinner. I felt no satisfaction. Just sadness for what he'd done to himself. Mara had called me the week after the dinner. "Thank you for using those recordings," she'd said. "He did the same thing to me during our divorce. Told everyone I was unstable. That I was the problem. No one believed me until it was too late. I'm sorry you went through that alone," I'd told her. "But you didn't," she'd said. "You had proof. You had the truth. And you let it speak." I looked around my office now. I saw photos of my team. I noticed the contracts we'd signed. I recognized the growth we'd achieved. Everything I'd built was real, earned, honest. My phone rang. I saw it was Mom. "Hi, Mom. Dinner tonight?" she asked. Her voice was lighter than it had been in weeks. "Just family. Small. Your dad is grilling." "I'll be there," I said. "Lucas reached out," she added carefully. "He's in therapy. He apologized. Actually apologized, not the fake kind." I processed that information. "That's good, Mom. You don't have to forgive him," she said quickly. "I just wanted you to know." "I know," I said. I meant it. Later that evening, I stood on my parents' back deck. I held a glass of lemonade. I watched Dad flip burgers. I heard Mom laugh at something Aunt Maria said. This was real. This was family without performance. Without lies. Without manipulation. I'd learned something important that night at Mom's birthday dinner. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply tell the truth. Let the facts speak. Let the evidence talk. Don't yell. Don't scream. Don't fight. Just present reality and let it do the work. Because the truth, I realized, doesn't need embellishment. It doesn't need drama. It doesn't need revenge. The truth just needs to be heard. And once people hear it, really hear it, everything changes. I smiled as the sun set completely. I felt peace I hadn't felt in months. I understood that protecting Lucas from consequences had only enabled him to hurt more people. By letting the truth speak, I'd finally set everyone free. Including him. And especially myself.